Welcome to Learning to Love Literature, the podcast dedicated to discussing difficult literary topics in an easy-to-understand way. I'm your host, Amanda Faltz Stanley. Today, on August 10th, 2023, we will be discussing the American literary movement, which began in the 1830s, called Transcendentalism. Transcendentalism began in New England in the 1830s. This followed the realist literature movement with writers such as Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson. Fathers of the Transcendentalism movement in America were Ralph Waldo Emerson, who lived from 1803 to 1882, and Henry David Thoreau, who lived from 1817 to 1862. Prior to the 1830s, many Americans held the attitude that European literature was superior to American literature. Transcendentalist authors had no interest in imitating European authors, and so they set out to create their own style. According to Britannica, from 1830 to 1855, Transcendentalist writers sought to create a new, national, cultural identity. In Leaves of Grass, Walt Whitman says, "The United States themselves are essentially the greatest poem." Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why do I care what someone wrote about in the 1800s? How does this relate to me? What does this have to do with good literature? Well, I'll let you know that Transcendentalism had four main themes, and you might be surprised at how these themes will relate to your own life today. The first theme of Transcendentalism is self-reliance. This means that you should follow your own instincts and ideas. You should not blindly follow what is popular, and that included the religious and educational teachings at the time. Ralph Waldo Emerson in Self-Reliance said, "Listen to the inward voice and bravely obey that. Do the things at which you are great, not for what you were never made for. To be great is to be misunderstood." A second theme in Transcendentalism is nonconformity. In many ways, Transcendentalism was a reaction to the pressures of society. Transcendentalists were skeptical of the educational and religious structures that were the norm in America at the time. This meant that you shouldn't follow what others tell you without reflection. In nonconformity, you should find the truth in your heart and in your mind, even if it is opposing to what others are doing at the time. Ralph Waldo Emerson famously said, "Imitation is suicide." And Henry David Thoreau said, "Beware of all enterprises that require a new set of clothes." Don't try to fit yourself into something that isn't who you are. A third theme of Transcendentalism is the goodness of man and nature. Transcendentalists viewed humans and nature as inherently good, rather than corrupt, sinful, or uncivilized. This was a sharp contrast to the dominant religious beliefs at the time and caused quite a bit of controversy. Because of a consciousness issue, Emerson actually chose to leave the priesthood and focus more on his transcendentalism beliefs. And the fourth and final theme for Transcendentalism is isolation and simplicity. In Walden Pond, Henry David Thoreau calls for simplicity when he writes, "Simplicity, simplicity, simplicity." He is urging his readers to simplify their lives. He believes that instead of burying oneself in never-ending, impossible tasks, we should attempt to focus only on a few tasks each day, and to do each of those tasks to the best of your ability. Do what you can control, and then do it to the best of your ability. As you go about your day today, perhaps you will stop to consider what aspects of Transcendentalism are similar to your beliefs or practices. If you need to simplify your life, perhaps you will consider reading or listening to an audiobook of Walden or Self-Reliance. Thank you for listening to this edition of Learning to Love Literature. I'm your host, Amanda Faltz Stanley, and I hope you'll tune in again soon.